Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote. It is something I really commend everyone to read. It's written in plain English, and she takes the majority to task, and I had the exact same.
A public official found himself embroiled in a scandal of unprecedented proportions when it came to light that he had orchestrated a series of contracts amounting to over $1 million for a favored company. What exacerbated the situation was the discovery that he had surreptitiously accepted a substantial kickback of $133,000 as a token of gratitude. This blatant display of corruption not only raised eyebrows, but also shook the foundations of public trust in the integrity of governmental processes. As investigations by law enforcement agencies commenced, the official resorted to a web of lies and deceit in a desperate attempt to evade accountability. His actions mirrored those of a character in a crime drama, betraying a disregard for the seriousness of his transgressions and the ramifications they carried in the real world. Ultimately, the case landed in the chambers of the Supreme Court, where expectations of unequivocal justice were high. However, to the dismay of many, the majority opinion chose to turn a blind eye to the clear breaches of bribery laws, opting instead to rationalize and diminish the severity of the official's misconduct. In a compelling dissent that reverberated across legal and moral landscapes, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson fiercely criticized the majority's decision. She rebuked the illogical reasoning behind their leniency, emphasizing the unambiguous illegality of bribery under federal statutes. Justice Jackson's dissent not only underscored the critical importance of upholding legal standards, but also illuminated the profound ethical implications of corruption within public institutions. Bribery transcends mere legality. It strikes at the core of public trust in democratic governance. When officials succumb to the lure of illicit gains, it sends a chilling message that integrity and fairness can be undermined by personal greed. Justice Jackson articulated these concerns eloquently, highlighting the corrosive effect of corruption on the fabric of society. The specifics of the case were as astonishing as they were troubling. Following the awarding of lucrative contracts, the official brazenly demanded a substantial kickback, betraying the public trust for personal enrichment. When confronted by law enforcement, he resorted to deception and obfuscation, behaviors that only served to underscore his culpability. Despite the glaring evidence against him, the majority opinion sought to downplay the seriousness of his actions, fostering an atmosphere of impunity. Justice Jackson refused to acquiesce to such a narrative. She meticulously dissected the majority's arguments, exposing their flawed logic and selective application of legal principles. At its core, she argued, bribery remains bribery regardless of when the monetary exchange occurs. By challenging the majority's leniency, Justice Jackson underscored the imperative of maintaining consistent and unwavering standards of justice, free from partisan influence or personal agendas. The historical context surrounding Justices Alito and Thomas, both longstanding figures on the Supreme Court, adds further complexity to the situation. While their appointments predate the Trump administration, their judicial decisions often align closely with the administration's policies and interests. This alignment has been particularly evident in cases involving executive authority, campaign finance regulations, and governmental accountability, where their rulings have tended to favor expansive interpretations that benefit those in power. These decisions extend beyond legal ramifications, resonating deeply within the realm of democratic governance. By expanding executive powers and weakening regulatory frameworks, Justices Alito and Thomas have contributed to an environment where political influence can overshadow principles of transparency and fairness. This trend raises profound questions about the judiciary's role as a check on governmental overreach and its ability to uphold the rule of law impartially. In the case under scrutiny, the Supreme Court's delay in addressing the official's misconduct further eroded public confidence in the judicial process.
Nickels and dimes it down to 13,000. And then when law enforcement comes and says, what is this? He lies repeatedly and comes up with a whole series of false stories to account for that money. Why could
delaying justice effectively denies justice, particularly when it pertains to holding powerful individuals accountable for their actions. Justice Jackson's frustration with the court's inaction was palpable, underscoring the urgency of addressing corruption swiftly and decisively. The stakes are high, not merely for the individuals involved, but for the integrity of our democratic institutions as a whole. Delaying justice allows malfeasance to fester, casting doubt on the sanctity of the rule of law. Justice Jackson's dissent served as a poignant reminder of the imperative to uphold principles of fairness and accountability, even in the face of institutional inertia or political pressure. Long before Trump came into power, Alito by George W. Bush and Thomas George W. Bush, however, During Trump's presidency, these two justices often aligned with his views and helped him out in ways that are pretty questionable. Trump might not have appointed them, but he sure has benefited from their decisions. One of the most glaring examples of how Alito and Thomas have supported Trump's interests is their stance on executive power and immunity. They've consistently backed rulings that expand presidential authority, which just so happens to benefit Trump. Remember when Trump was facing all those legal battles and investigations? These two justices often sided with opinions that made it harder to hold a sitting president accountable. It's like they were giving Trump a free pass to do as he pleased without worrying about the consequences. And Donald Trump wants to make all of that money tax-free because Donald Trump's out. They're in Nevada, saying he wants to make tips tax-free. You don't have to include tips in your tax returns. So now he's saying, if you're a public official, someone gives you $1 million after a deal. Another area where their rulings have helped Trump is in cases involving campaign finance and corruption. Alito and Thomas have supported decisions that weaken regulations on campaign contributions, making it easier for big money to influence politics. This aligns perfectly with Trump's interests, as he has always been about leveraging financial power to gain political advantage. By dismantling these regulations, they've opened the door for Trump and his wealthy allies to exert even more influence over the political process. Their recent rulings on issues like gerrymandering and voting rights also raise eyebrows. Both justices have supported decisions that make it harder to challenge gerrymander districts and voter suppression laws. These decisions disproportionately affect minority voters and typically benefit Republican candidates, including those who are staunch Trump supporters. It's like they're stacking the deck to ensure that Trump and his allies can maintain their grip on power, something that you have Justice Alito and Justice Thomas voting on. Just like they're going to be voting on the January 6th case. At this, it tells you just the sorry state that the courts are in, which is Justice Jackson's dissent in the Snyder decision is a direct challenge to this kind of judicial behavior. She's not just criticizing a single ruling, she's calling out a pattern of decisions that favor the powerful at the expense of fairness and justice. By highlighting the hypocrisy and inconsistency in Alito and Thomas rulings, Jackson is drawing attention to how these justices are bending the rules to benefit Trump. The intersection of law and morality forms a central theme in Justice Jackson's dissent. Beyond legal interpretations, she emphasizes the broader societal implications of corruption within public service. When officials prioritize personal gain over public duty, they undermine the very foundations of democratic governance. Justice Jackson's critique extends beyond procedural errors. It highlights the profound ethical responsibilities inherent in holding public office. In conclusion, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent in the Supreme Court's handling of the bribery case underscores the critical importance of judicial integrity in preserving public trust. Her unwavering commitment to upholding the rule of law, devoid of political influence, serves as a beacon of hope in an era fraught with uncertainty and division. As our nation grapples with profound questions of justice and accountability, Justice Jackson's dissent offers a timely reminder of the enduring values that define our democracy.